Right?
It looks like a traffic jam.
David, how long are you in
I'm in Hong Kong.
All right, so we have people from Jakarta, and Singapore. Unfortunately, our friends from Thailand haven't been able to join us today.
Okay.
All right, guys. We are pretty much live Google Air. We may get a few public participants joining us in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
I think somebody's laptop needs to be toned down in terms of volume because the voice is bouncing down. Is everybody experiencing the same thing?
I'm good so far. And Singapore, unfortunately, our friends from Thailand haven't been able to join us today.
Okay.
All right, guys. We are pretty much live Google Air. We may get a few public participants joining us in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
I think somebody's laptop needs to be toned down in terms of volume because the voice is bouncing.
Oh. Hi guys. Am I audible?
Yeah, Frantic is very clear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Maybe what we could do is, I know there's an echo, so I think as house rules, if you could just speak one at a time, great. And if you could switch between mics for the other people, that'll be wonderful. So, okay, I think this is slightly better. So I think I'm just going to make it very quick, and I'll let everyone else speak. Guys, thank you so much for spending your precious time today. And I know it's difficult. It's in the middle of the week and it's afternoon. As a quick introduction, thanks to DMG, we have the Google Hangout Air this afternoon, and we have Wendy from DMG. So Wendy, thanks a lot for organizing and
Not at all. Thank you for everybody who's participating.
Yeah, pleasure. And this afternoon, we're just gathering to talk about a couple of things. Primarily, how do we, as different participants in the digital ecosystem, how do we see the digital world evolving? And it'll be good to get perspectives from different markets, since we have people from Jakarta, Singapore, and Malaysia. And the second topic would be about the whole agency-client relationship, and how do you see that evolving, given new dimensions of programmatic coming in, Internet of Things coming in, and of course the usual creative and digital marketing activities going on. So David, I'm just going to request you to share your perspective, since you obviously are part of an association as well as you run a pretty large agency as well, communications agency. What's your take in terms of the growth of digital in the world of communication in ASEAN? How do you see that growing and shaping up over the next 2 to 3 years? David, can you hear us? Okay, David says there's echo. Okay, I think he can hear us. So David, I'm going to shut down my mic.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Please feel free to share your opinion.
As well as you run a pretty large agency as well, communications agency. What's your take in terms of the growth of digital in the world of communication in ASEAN? How do you see that growing and shaping up over the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, thanks so much for having me part of this group and for the huge question, a very large-scale question.
Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay,
yes.
Good. Yep. So,
okay, I think you can hear us.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just jump in, and if this isn't working, let me know. So what I was going to say was, what's really interesting for me is not so much the technology or the marketing services that are available, but rather the client mindset. And when you look at what's happening around Southeast Asia, we're seeing all of the tools are there. The mobile penetration is there. The smartphone penetration is going up like a hockey stick. You've got some very sophisticated technology out there, a real explosion in things like mobile messaging apps, for example. And obviously, in addition to a big jump in programmatic ad trading and all kinds of ad networks out there. So the interesting thing for me is not so much about the platforms, but rather about the way organizations are beginning to make mobile and digital mainstream in their marketing plans. And this is something quite new. And some of the notes that were sent around prior to this call, it was outlined how it's actually interesting that there's sort of 7, 8, 9% of marketers' marketing dollars are being spent on digital. And yet if you look at where the audiences are, maybe 70, 80, 90% of their audiences are digital. So in answer to the question of the next 2 or 3 days, I think, next 2 or 3 years, I think we'll see a coming together of those technologies, and marketers will begin to make them mainstream. And we'll look at, I would predict probably a sort of 50% uptick in budgets as all of this goes mainstream.
Right. And do you see this happening in specific markets in Asia Pacific? More so than the others?
So, sorry, what was your question? Do I see one about the market?
Do you see this 50% uptake happening in specific Asian markets more so than others?
Marketers will begin to make them mainstream. Well, I think we're going to see a lot of activity out of Indonesia and a lot of innovation, which will be very interesting to watch. So, many senior.
More so than the others?
I wonder if you could hear me. I was talking about Indonesia.
Yes, Indonesian innovation. I'm just going to take a segue into Damon. Damon, what's your take in terms of Indonesia? How is the social, digital, and mobile penetration impacting?
Could I suggest that you move to one of the other panelists for a moment? I'm getting some very bad echoing.
Yes, I've requested Damon for his opinion on Indonesia, since you talked about Indonesia being, fairly critical from a digital perspective.
Right. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, Damon. You're
Okay,
looking
great.
nice in that car. Yes. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I always look nice everywhere. So Indonesia, well, social media, I think it's no question. Social media is definitely a big thing in Indonesia. And I think, if not really good at using it, we kind of overusing social media right now. Okay. And when it comes to platforms, I'm afraid Facebook and Twitter is still the 2 main social media platforms that we're using, aside from chat applications and everything. Yes, people in their habit and day-to-day activities, they use Line, they use Kakao Talk, they use WhatsApp, whatever. But when it comes to advertising, marketing, communication in digital platform, we haven't really tapped that much into that kind of platforms, actually. But given today this election, I think it's kind of changed the way we market the presidential candidates and so on in across all those platforms. It's pretty interesting. I think this election is not only politically interesting, but when it comes to digital marketing, a lot of pro bono's contents are being distributed across all those platforms that haven't been used before by brands. So that's pretty interesting.
And
Italo, maybe you want to add something about this, because he's involved.
Yes, Italo, what's your take on this?
The campaign.
Yeah, I think Damon already explained clearly on the landscape itself. I think, I agree that social media is very happening here. I think there's a lot of local. Actually, I just have a meeting with PicMix. PicMix is the competitor of Instagram. So they have 20. It's an Indonesian-based app. It's have 20 million user worldwide. So they have 7 million user from Indonesia. I think, but I think the advertising is need to understand more how to leverage this social media quickly by the consumers.
And Italo, do you see that this whole shift in the landscape is impacting brands and their digital budgets, or is it just still too much noise out there? Is it really? Do you see Indonesian brands spending more on content marketing, engagement on social media in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think there is. I think Facebook just opened the office in Indonesia like 2 months ago. So I think it's a good step, meaning the big companies already seeing this as a big market. And I think the brand is getting more and more serious in digital, not only talking about social media, but digital as overall. I see they're demanding more and more digital. I met several very old school agencies that demand to help for running a digital campaign for their clients. So it's like automotive client or consumer goods client. I think the growth is there, but I think the knowledge and the education between the agencies and the brand are different between the multinational and the local brand. Because in Indonesia, there's other local brand, big brand as well, like Garuda Food, Orang Tua Group, which is probably you guys never heard of it, but they are very big in Indonesia. They compete head-to-head with Unilever, P&G, and all these brands.
Right. So, Damon, we were just catching up in terms of whether the whole social movement is impacting brand budgets. So, Italo definitely mentioned that you guys are seeing local Indonesian brands spending more and more on digital. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. I think some of the clients, not necessarily local brands, but also big, huge corporations, multinational brands. Some are still really not that. How do you say it? Not that really keen getting into digital that much. Spending a lot of money into digital and stuff. Because I think I agree with David. It's the mindset. They still think the best platforms to deliver messages is TV commercials, print ads. I'm not saying it's not that effective. But the fact that this is something that is kind of a UFO for them or alien for them, so yeah, the spending is getting bigger, but some even big brands are still that have this certain level of fear to get fully immersed into digital marketing campaigns.
Right, Kenneth, what's the scene in Malaysia? Do you see a similar trend in Malaysia?
So, I'd say that it's slightly different in Malaysia actually. So what's going on in Malaysia right now is that we can see a drop in social trends already. So it's getting fragmented. People are logging in lesser to social sites, and there's a lot of good points about it as well, because there's less brands and advertisers doing a lot of spams all around and trying to use one message and try to reach everyone with the same message. So I mean, there's a lot of good things that's going on in a social sphere in Malaysia. But overall, mobile penetration is high. Right now, smartphone penetration is at about 80% in Malaysia, which is great. And that's driving a lot of advertisers re-looking at how they would be able to influence consumer decision right on the point of sale actually. So a lot of discussion is going on about video. So by itself, we have a lot of video clients. So we have a lot of advertisers that run a lot of TVC and spend a lot of money on TV, and traditionally all our conversation is garnered around GRPs and CPRPs and all that. But the new conversation that we're having with a lot of brands and advertisers in Malaysia is that we start talking about IGRPs and how do we breach that reach when we want to repurpose their TVC to use it for online videos and all that. So my take is this. My take is three things, is that with high smartphone penetration going on in Malaysia right now, advertisers see the need to get into that space. So a lot of conversation is going on into what we can do about it, from like David was saying, from the Internet of Things, and those are the exciting things that's going on right now. All the way down to social media fragmentation, which really trigger people or advertisers over here to relook at their strategy and how they want to do social in Malaysia. And of course, video is the key driver right now in Malaysia.
Right. So a lot of video that is kind of driving conversations. David, my next question is to you. You've obviously seen the communications industry evolve drastically over the last couple of decades. What's been some of your disappointments in terms of what you would have perhaps expected from digital, but somehow digital has not really delivered? We always talk very optimistically about digital, but have you been disappointed with digital in any way?
Yeah, I guess marketers' relationship with digital would be like a man's relationship with a woman. So
I like this interesting angle.
Overall, this has been a very good relationship, and I personally am glad to have had it and to be having it. But yes, there are disappointments. I guess if I think of some of the most problematic areas, it's the high level of education that digital requires. And I'll just give a very specific example. If I am a business person, not a marketer, but a business person, I want sales and I want to see some evidence of sales leads. That's sort of the main thing that I'm looking for. And all too often, marketers and digital marketers come in and they talk about media rather than audiences or business results. And I think one of the frustrations in this relationship, for example, to use that analogy, is if you think about doing a lead generation program and you develop a database of, I don't know, let's say 15,000 marketing qualified leads, and then mainstream marketer will say, yes, but I haven't sold anything to any of those people yet. And there's a sort of a confusion out there, I think, sometimes, that perhaps as an industry we created that digital is a little bit like direct marketing, right? If we make a compelling offer to the customer, they'll respond right away and will drive business right away. And as we know, however many of us are in this hangout, often it's much more complex than that, and you've got multiple layers through that sales funnel where you need to be working. And I guess that's probably one of my principal disappointments. Is that you are increasingly seeing that link to sales through e-commerce and social commerce and mobile commerce, but there's still an expectation there that digital will deliver sales rapidly and quickly, and a lot of business people or marketers don't have the patience to go on that voyage with you.
Right. What about you guys, Damon and Italo? Damon, you could share what's some of your disappointments in the digital world?
Well, I don't have any disappointment with digital because I make money out of it. So yeah, totally agree with David. I think we have. Here's the thing with digital nowadays, especially in agencies. David was talking about the marketers, and totally agree with that. And us agencies, I don't think we need to take some blame of that because, to be honest, we are sometimes too busy with the tools, understanding with new social media platforms, understanding new tools, new kind of measurements, new kind of bidding systems or whatever. And we sometimes forget where we are heading in terms of campaigns and objectives. We stop asking questions, the real questions. It's like, there's this. Maybe this could be an analogy. I was just back from Japan, and people say that the metro in Japan, the subway in Japan, is really complicated, right? I was challenged. I really need to conquer this subway of Japan. I wanna make sure I can go through all around Tokyo and Kyoto or whatever with subways. So I was so busy making sense all the rails, all the systems and everything. I forgot where exactly should I be going in Tokyo and Kyoto. You know what I mean? And I think that's exactly what's happening with agencies right now in digital. We have so many tools. It's available out there. You name it, we have it. Nothing is new under the sun. Everything is only improvements. And sometimes we forgot to answer the right questions, like, why are we doing this on digital? Why should we use YouTube in the first place? Why should we use Google search or whatever? So I think this confusion happens inside or within the agency sometimes, and whatever result and proposals that we propose to the client sometimes confuse the client. Why are you proposing me this? then again, by the end of the day, sometimes they ask about sales and stuff, because that's the only secure questions that I have to ask and address to the agencies. That's my point.
So your point, again, very similar to David, is we as the agency, the supply side guys, need to take some part of the blame, that we are probably overselling it, we're probably not selling it right, and we're probably creating wrong expectations. Italo, would you kind of agree that the agency side needs to kind of take some blame on this?
I think from my point is, I think we need to work most closely between the SSP and the agency, the supply side and the agency, to understand more what is the objective of the campaign of the brand itself. So I think some of the brand itself, sometimes they give some objective that need to be redefined, because maybe they don't understand about digital. I think it's not about working closely with the agency, and I think to define, because sometimes the brand is come up a very simple question, how to increase sales or how to get lead from digital. So I think we need to redefine the objective of the brand and then work closely with all the parties. And there's so many things happen in digital, because let's say there's a search, there's a social, there's a display, and even on search there's a SEO and there's a paid search on social and all these things. So I think, and I don't believe a full service agency. I believe some agency that specialize in search, some are specialized in social, some specialize in asset development, some specialists in CRM or lead nurturing. So I think, so working with many parties at the same time is very challenging, especially if all of these parties don't have the same understanding of digital. But I think it is a challenge. Digital is something new. So every time I meet an agency or I meet a brand, I always challenge, guys, do you want to innovate? Do you want to try? Do you want to make mistake? Let's do digital. If you are afraid to do mistake, it's really hard to create something in digital.
Right. Kenneth, what about your side? Any disappointments?
So, day to day, I always see two groups of people that I always deal with in digital in Malaysia. So there'll be one group that would talk deep about DSP and SSPs and RTBs and every single retargeting platform and sketching and possible, right? And there's the other group that would talk about digital, but on a more humanized way, right? And that's what I feel that we lack the bridge in how we talk digital to advertisers, to brands out there. So I feel like we need to humanize, like what David was saying, humanize digital, talk about sales, talk about how and why we land on this, what we're proposing in the first place is because we want to achieve this, want to do this with a brand and all that, instead of just talking tech and drilling too deep into it that we can't seem to get ourselves out. So I feel that a lot of times I'm guilty of that as well, to be honest. But it's definitely moving towards a better. I feel like a lot more people are understanding digital better, and advertisers and brands are understanding digital better. So it's coming to the bridge that gap that we're talking about. So looking to the future.
David, here's a perspective and question for you. Why is it that, I mean, digital is obviously more measurable and, compared to offline channels, but why is it that we are always so, desperate, the digital world, when it comes to telling the capabilities of digital? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer that, hey, it's measurable, it's trackable, yet why is it relatively more difficult to sell digital even today to clients? Why are they relying on out of home, offline, or do you see merit in those channels as well?
So I guess that there's two parts to that question. Let me start with do I see merit? I mean, I think that always the winner is going to be the compelling customer-centric marketing idea, right? It's going to be the campaign idea that grabs the customer, but the heart and the and the mind and tugs them along across all different kinds of media, whether it's digital or offline or traditional media. So I think one thing that sometimes, and I'm sorry I don't remember who made this point previously, but I completely agree with the thought that sometimes we get so tied up in the technical aspects of digital or the media measurement of it that we don't take a step back and spend more time on the pure marketing and the digital aspect of it. So I think that's the key to the way forward. In terms of digital defending itself, I think I don't know. I heard a joke recently that I thought was kind of amusing, and it was about how somebody asked a fish if they knew what water is, and of course the fish had no idea what water is because water's everywhere, right? And I think digital's the same way. We talk about digital as if it was some kind of particular skill or marketing approach, but it's all around us, right? I mean, I don't think that there's necessarily a direct connection between somebody using a tablet or using a mobile messaging application or ordering something on e-commerce. These are all, digital pieces that are around us, rather than one single thing called digital. So, I mean, to that end, we the association that I head up, the Digital and Direct Marketing Association, we used to be called the Asia Digital Marketing Association, and one of the reasons why we changed was, we were thinking that if all marketing is digital, why do we even have digital in our title at all? Yeah. So it's a real shift in I'm a young man myself, but the full transformation won't take place until all marketers are digital natives.
Right. And what about you, Damon? I mean, what do you see as one or some of the key challenges in selling digital vis-a-vis offline channels? It still frustrates me as a digital person that clients are still spending more than 80% of their budgets on TV, print, outdoor. Why do you think that's the case? And what needs to be done from the digital industry to change that quickly, not at a very slow pace, but at a very exponential pace? How do we do that?
I think David and Kenneth has answered that question. I think the real problem right now is we put digital and traditional into different silos. Well, it's actually under the same landscape. Like, you're breathing oxygen is basically you. Right now we're doing digital. This is digital, right? Anybody who's using a mobile phone is basically involved in digital. And by doing different silos, hey, that's a BTL agency, that's ATL initiative, so this is a digital initiative. That creates a confusion for marketeers, and they think, hey, you know what, since digital is new, why don't we put less money into digital and just use more money into things that we are secure about right now, which is TVCs, billboards, outdoors, and whatever. So I think the key point, if we want to fast forward into a bigger budget for digital, say for instance, is we need to make sure the clients, the marketeers, understand that digital is not a silo. It's actually part of your integrated marketing programs. It's like spending an outdoor. It's like spending airtime in your TVCs and so on and so on. It's not a silo that you can, okay, I'm going to give you 5% for the whole digital landscape, and divide those 5% into bits and pieces into different digital platforms and medias and channels. I think that's the key, changing the mindset of the marketeers. And Kenneth mentioned just now about relating whatever technicalities that we have in the proposals, whatever real-time biddings, those kind of jargons needs to be connected to whatever jargons that they're familiar with in their proposals or things that they can present to their CMOs or marketing directors.
All right, great. And so, Kenneth, I have a question for you in terms of agency structure. With all these changes that you just talked about, video, real-time bidding, programmatic, etc., how are agencies like Karat structuring themselves to prepare themselves for the future? How are you guys, still creating a lot of bandwidth for creative work, technical people, or are you guys just focusing on one core skill in digital? How are you guys restructuring your agency?
So there's a bit of paradigm shift in how agencies in Malaysia are moving. So traditionally, there's always been your offline team and your digital team that will tackle all your clients' brief and all that. What happening in the past, in recent 2 years actually, is that there's more hybrid planners, and you keep hearing that all around every other agency that you go to in Malaysia, especially, that there are a lot of hybrid planners here and there, and agencies are trying to merge that two silo into one, where it's making offline planners do digital planning together, and scheduling and planning and proposals and all that. So that's going on. But I have a take on this though, is that as we are making offline, planners um, do digital planning, we we need to also understand that digital planners actually don't know how to do offline planning. So what it really means is that what I am saying is that if I were to ask my team to do a TV schedule tomorrow, would they know what to do? So, because it's the same question, right? If you look at it, so it's one of the things that I guess a lot of agencies are realizing as well. So there's a lot more training, not just for traditional planners to learn about digital, but for digital planners to learn about TV planning, to learn about radio planning and offline and out of home and how it's being done and what are GRPs and so forth. So I think that's the structure that's going on right now, and it's pretty cool. It's working out.
Right. Italo, how do you see that? I guess you have a lot more ad tech, digital tech people in your team. How are you preparing yourselves for the next few years?
I agree with Damon. We need to work with less jargon. So actually, I never use the word SSP, DSP, all these three acronyms, especially when in Indonesian market. I think how we make the message more clearly for the brand, what this programmatic advertising actually really help for them. So programmatic advertising is about running a campaign more efficiently, targeting to the right audience, so the brand have the better ROI. So as simple as that. So every time we communicate to the agencies, we never use the SSP word and all these things. So it's not important for them. So it's really how to communicate. And I think the most important part as well is about the measurement as well. When you mentioned about TV spending and digital spending, I think now especially in Indonesia, everybody's rely on Nielsen data. And Nielsen data is like really one source of information for TV spending in Indonesia. And there is one single clear measurement parameters in Indonesia that being used now. So it's very challenging for the brand to measure on everything on Indonesia.
Right. And what about David? You have gone through multiple iterations of changes in your organization in Byte? David, we can't hear you.
You're still on mute, David.
David, you're on mute.
Trying to come off.
All right, I think we could hear you now.
Okay. You know, it works much better when you're not on mute. No, at Byte we did the full journey. As the president, I'm very focused on the financial health of the company. So I know that about 5 years ago we were 90% offline revenue. 90% of our revenue came from offline sources, and today we're about 60% digital and about 40% offline. So that's been a huge shift for our company, not only in terms of the finances, but also in terms of the types of people that we hire, the way that we interact with clients, the way that we charge our clients, and it's just been a huge both cultural and technical shift for us. And maybe if I could just share a couple of points that might be interesting coming out of that. One was we decided rather than focusing on our own internal organizational structure, we'd look at the customer journey, because that's really what's changed. Not so much the digital or non-digital media consumption, that's not the major change in consumer behavior. It's been around this non-linear customer journey where in the old days, meaning like about 10 years ago, people would become aware of a brand, they'd understand it, they'd have some kind of a preference, and at some point they would show an interest in purchase, and then they would purchase, and then they go into some sort of CRM system as a customer. But today's customer might start researching something online and then immediately hit the buy button, right, directly through e-commerce, particularly in sort of the travel industry. Is a good example where you might be wondering about a holiday to Mauritius, and before you know it, you booked it, instead of going through that usual or that more traditional, consideration customer journey. So, as an agency, I think for all agencies, they need to focus more on the customer journey that their clients are going through and looking at the various touch points, some of which are digital and some of which are not, and then look at how to deliver the right blend of consultancy services and marketing services to deliver against each of those customer touch points. And certainly, I think with Byte, I mentioned we went from sort of 10% digital to where we are today. I think it'll balance out at somewhere around sort of 75% digital and 25% offline. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll be 100% digital, but I think that's probably about the optimum blend.
Right. That's great. Guys, I'm going to take a couple of questions from some of the guys who are following us. And so there's one question from Chester who asks how much budgets go into mobile internet advertising, I guess mobile advertising in our respective regions. So maybe if, Kenneth, you could share your perspective on how critical is mobile advertising in Malaysia right now.
So mobile is in fact a key driver for social and video ads, to be honest. So our clients say when we explain to a lot of people in Malaysia, I mean, people get it. People get that mobile is key, right? So the spend has moved from a near 10% on mobile spend last year to right now at least about 25% of digital dollars that are spent with us currently. So, and it's only going to get higher and higher.
And is this on smartphones or it's also in your feature phones, web-based?
So this is smartphone and feature phone inclusive. So a lot of SMS-based, location-based targeting and all that is enabled. Marketing is enabled in a lot of campaigns right now. People are using a lot of that.
Right.
Brands are doing that as well.
So you're saying in Malaysia it's close to about 30% overall, right? From an ad spend perspective.
Yes.
All right. And Damon, what about in Jakarta, in Indonesia? What's the mobile? It must be higher, or is it and similar scales like in Malaysia?
To be honest, I don't know.
That's a good answer. Right.
Nobody knows, man. A lot of numbers are getting sent to me through PowerPoints, coming from this, coming from there. Nobody really knows how many dollars are being spent on mobile. Maybe Italo has some numbers.
Italo, what's your guess?
I think, as I told you, measurement in Indonesia is not really centralized, so I cannot guess the mobile number. It's really because there is two kinds of mobile. This is the mobile that comes from messaging, where the telco are selling SMS, location-based advertising, and mobile internet spending. And I think Indonesia has a different landscape than Malaysia. Indonesia, I think the smartphone penetration is still very small, so 30%. I think 70 to 60% like really still dominated by feature phone.
Okay. And David, from your association perspective, do you guys have any numbers, or would you agree that it's really hard to quantify the mobile spends at this juncture? David, I think you're on mute again.
Yeah. No, I know. It is hard, but there is data out there, and I guess what we're seeing in terms of mobile is an incredible hockey stick of growth. Sorry, I'm talking about mobile advertising. Just an incredible hockey stick, but it's on such a low base that it's still not something that is making waves on the scene. It's sort of, if you look at, I'll use the power of the Hangout. If this is sort of total marketing spend, and then this is the amount spent on media, and that's the amount spent on digital, then the amount spent on mobile is down here, right? So at the moment, it's not significant in terms of dollars, but it's growing so exponentially that I would say within the next sort of 4 to 5 years, it will become the dominant form of digital advertising. Not only because of the growth of the medium, but also the definition of mobility is going to change, right? We still in many markets in Asia, there's still enough feature phones out there that doing an SMS campaign might even make sense, right? Not everybody has a smartphone. You don't necessarily have that kind of penetration. But in the next 5 years or so, the other number that we're seeing hockey sticking is smartphone penetration, and the time when, let's say, 40 or so percent of consumers in Asia are going to have like a complete broadband internet experience in the palm of their hand. That's probably 4 to 5 years away, which for those smart companies, and I see some of them on the Hangout, start positioning themselves in that mobile space. It will be a very strong position to be in.
Right. Thank you. And there's another comment from David Ho. Now this is a difficult one, and he says all brands clients want to know is what's the ROI, and he says the problem with social media or digital agencies is that they seem to have the inability to substantiate it, unlike traditional media. Now that's something serious. Now, what's your take on that? I mean, maybe Kenneth, maybe since Kenneth does work in different domains, do you agree with that? Firstly, are digital agencies not capable in substantiating the ROI, or what's your take on it?
So this is the most interesting question that that we face every other day with a lot of marketers, like everyone else, right? So the thing is this: when we propose a plan, when we propose a digital plan, we get questions: what's the ROI, what's the click-through rate, how many clicks are coming in, and how would it generate sales and leads and so forth, right? And conversion and everything else. And then while we try to address everything, and I see an offline planner would come in and, hey, here we go, here's a TV plan, and take my money, and that's it. So it's like, oh wow, how do you prove that? How do you prove TV is generating sales for you? So my take is this. My take is if we overlook and if we drill too deep into it, you'd realize that digital by itself wouldn't generate the amount of sales that you need. Digital is a bridge. Digital bridge your gap in between your TV plan and your out-of-home plan and your print and everything else that you do. So digital is able now to do all of that, and that's how we would advise a client to do that, right? So, so the answer is, can we measure it? Yes, of course. That's probably the only platform that you'll be able to measure your sales, right? And a direct attribution of what is coming in and the leads that are coming in, everything else that we'll be able to do for you. But it shouldn't be measured in silo.
Right. Damon, what's your take? I mean, my view is that digital perhaps is a far better position for measurement than most traditional channels. But why do clients still have that inclination or feeling that digital agencies can't really measure?
Well, why don't I again use the incredible visual power of the Hangout to say you have to look at measurement at 3 levels. The first level is at that kind of media level, which is reach and response. So how many consumers did we reach? How many impressions did we make? And in the TV world, they become very accomplished at counting how many people turned on their TV sets or were watching at a particular time. You also see metrics like if I send out an email, how many people open it or click through to a particular piece of content. So just measuring reach and resonance. At the next level of response, I'll go about there, you have influence. And that's what people talk about a lot in terms of social media, right? How am I engaging with opinion leaders online, and how am I getting audience engagement? And I think brands are beginning to learn that it's not just about whether somebody likes your brand or buys your brand, but even just being engaged with the brand is an important part of the sales process and of building a brand. And then at the top level, then you have the business result, which could be something like a very solid result, like somebody booking a plane ticket via e-commerce, so a direct route to sales, or it could be some other conversion that the client is defined, like for example, applying for your credit card. That could be the business result that's expected, that they're looking to get X number of applications in, something like that, or even a slightly softer but still important business result, like having your net promoter score go up and have your brand be more valuable in that sense. And so I think that's where agencies are struggling. A lot of agencies are still talking down at this reach and response level, and their clients, depending on how senior they are in the organization, are talking up here. And all of those metrics are important. I don't want to in any way belittle the importance of reach or frequency or any of these other click-through rates. They're all important, but I think it's important when setting the criteria for a campaign that clients understand that this is a path or a journey up through these different levels to the result that's trying to be accomplished, and just getting a certain click-through rate or let's say getting 1,000 Facebook friends is not a result in and of itself.
All right. That's a great point. May aggregate different levels of KPIs and definitions. Damon, what about your view? Do you face that as an issue? I mean, I personally find that I wouldn't say unfair, but I think it's a bit, there's probably little basis on that comment, because I don't think offline agencies are better positioned to measure success. What's your take?
Well, my take is it is unfair. Measurement. Come on, guys. Are you serious? TVC, outdoor. How do you measure that? How do you substantiate the measurement? I mean, the question was about substantiating measurement, right? How do you substantiate an outdoor that you pay for 1 billion in Sudirman, say in Jakarta, or 2 billion rupiah a year? How do you substantiate that measurement? Well, in digital, of course, I cannot substantiate. If by the definition of substantiate meaning correlate it with sales, again, going back to the argument that David has mentioned, you cannot always correlate everything that you do in your marketing initiatives to sales. Like salesperson themselves cannot claim the glory of the increase of sales. Whatever reasons that they give. There's price, there's, we know the marketing 101, right? There's price, there's people, there's place, distributions, and so on and so on. So when it comes to measurement, I would say, not because that I'm working in digital, I was working in conventional marketing and traditional media. Definitely digital has a lot of numbers to show off. But when it comes to substantiating it and correlating it into sales, I don't think any kind of media can do so-called better when it comes to substantiating it. Yes, it is unfair if we want to put the spotlight into digital when it comes to substantiating a measurement.
All right. Okay, guys. Wow, that's
yeah, that was my team. My bad. Let me do it. Somebody's having a birthday bash or something. Something's going on out there. I'm missing a lot.
That was the official end of the hour, I thought.
That's right. That's true. We are getting close to 5 p.m. Thanks, David, for reminding me that. I just have a last couple of 2 points for you guys. Is the whole client-agency relationship. How is that changing? I recently saw a report about the Cannes Festival where there was a lot of criticism about the brief. A lot of people, in fact, there was a whole presentation about which says, well, I can't utter that word, F word, and says the age of brief is dying, and one doesn't really need to actually conceptualize a brief for any particular campaign. Do you see that happening, and how is that impacting client-agency relationship? Maybe Italo, your take on that. How important is the brief, and how is the client-agency relationship evolving in the digital world?
Sorry, I cannot hear your question. There's not...
Right. Was I echoing? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are all the mics switched off? I think so. Yes. So Italo, my question was, okay. Part one of the question was, how do you see the client-agency relationship shifting or changing in the digital world? And part two is the importance or the lack or the non-importance of the brief. Typically clients like to give agencies briefs. Do you see the brief being something that's sustainable, or is that not relevant at all because people have to react in a more real-time basis?
I think the brand should see digital more as a important media to work with. I think there's no more like digital brief and offline brief, so it should be one brief. So I think the digital need to understand what's happening in offline as well. There is a lot of gap between the traditional agency and digital agency, and happen that it's actually become the campaign is very inefficient on that part. I think brief is still very important, but I think I think brand need to really understand better how to coordinate between the offline and the digital agency. I think there's a lot of agency come up with 360 concept, very good concept, but at the end it's not easily implementable, because I think in the agency, in the brand side itself, there are several parties involved for digital and offline, usually separate different division. And I think brand need to really restructure their how the structure of the company as well, because I see big companies with one of the biggest spending in Asia only have 2 digital person, and I don't know why they only have 2 digital person. I think they have 40 brands, they're leading Indonesia consumer goods, but only 2 digital person, and it doesn't make sense for me why you only have 2 digital person. Yeah.
That's actually quite.
I think Damon.
I think we see that happening even in Singapore.
It's brand.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Kenneth, what's the scene in Malaysia? Yeah, Italo, you might as well name them. Yeah. And, Kenneth, what's the scene in Malaysia? How is the agency-client relationship changing?
So I think it's very similar. I mean, to be honest, like Italo pointed out rightly, I see huge brands and spending millions of dollars on marketing every month, but at the end of the day, 1 or 2 person digital team, a 10-man offline team, a 10-man activation team. When you go, hey, digital is so important in the future, but here you go, deal with it. So the relationship that we're building with brands is that we are definitely playing the expertise role, right? We don't want to lose that. We're always updating them on what is the latest trend, moving them beyond just buying premium ads and all that into, hey, do retargeting, hey, do custom audience, hey, do a lot more for everything else. So at least a lot of marketers and brands that I talk to, that I see, they see us as the expert and believe that we're directing them somewhere.
Right.
So, yeah.
David, any last comments on the client-agency relationship structure? What needs to be done to get things working better?
I think the key to all of this actually is to follow the money. It's if you ask a marketing director if he's concerned or interested in something that is 0.7% of his or her marketing budget, they'll probably say no. And there was a great comment, Wendy, you remember this, that somebody from AIG made at an iMedia Summit, talking about how CMOs need to be aware of and understand and deploy the best technology, but they're not expected to actually be able to use it or deploy it themselves. So you've got this sort of management function where you need to make sure that you're using digital effectively, but you don't necessarily have to understand everything, right? You don't need to. I'm sorry, who was it who was saying about not using the jargon of online advertising, right? As a CMO, you don't really need to know everything there is to know about programmatic or real-time bidding, for example, in order to get the benefit of programmatic. So I think the way forward is for agencies to more clearly package up what the result of all of this technology. I showed the 3 levels of measurement. How is what they're doing fit into the bigger picture of what that marketing is about? And that will, I think, get more attention from senior marketers. And then also, as I said, sort of show me the money. When somebody starts spending 50 or 60% of their money on digital, they're going to spend a lot more of their time watching that budget and making sure it's spent effectively. And right now, TV is king.
Right. Damon, you got to be reacting to that. Why is TV king, and how are you going to change that in Indonesia?
What would be interesting if we could see the division of budget instead of, hey, this is digital and this is conventional. Why don't we create, this just pops out of my mind, in the spirit of discussion, please shoot me with a gun, guys, if I say this wrongly. Why don't we do this, hey, okay, this is a budget for video. Video can go to TV, can go to YouTube, can go to Vimeo or Instagram video or whatever. It doesn't have to be, this is the budget for TV on conventional media and traditional media, and this is the budget for video on YouTube. We know for a fact a lot of brands like Nike and everything, they stop airing the first batch of their TV commercials in TVs instead of they're doing it in YouTube, and it works like a charm. You get interactions there, you get people share it. While on TV, whenever the spot goes up, you might be in the toilet, or maybe you're grabbing a bottle of beer in the fridge, and nobody claims anything about that, right? So I think what will be interesting in the future to see is the marketeers, even the media planners and agency planners, they stop dividing between digital and non-digital platforms. They start dividing based on the need of what the campaign needs. Not the, okay, this is digital, this is non-digital. How would you say TV is not digital right now with Chromecast, with Netflix and everything? So again, going back to the mindset, I believe we cannot put silos between digital and non-digital.
Right. No, that's some great points. We're coming to a wrap. A couple of key points. I like what David talked about, segregating your KPIs across different levels. And Damon also mentioned at the end that planners need to focus not from a channel perspective, but from the campaign objective and idea perspective. And we also spoke about mobile. Kenneth talked about, Italo talked about how, well, measurement could be different, but mobile is definitely the way to go. David talked about the hockey stick growth. So guys, a big thank you to TNG and AdTech for spending an hour across different cities. It's been a wonderful experience. I just have one last question for each of you. AdTech is just about a week away. What's that one thing that you guys are looking forward to from AdTech this time around? Maybe Italo, you could start. What's that one thing that you're looking from AdTech ASEAN next week when you come to Singapore?
More about measurement.
Measurement. Wendy, I hope you take notes. I'm sure these guys will hound you next week. So, okay, Italo, you need more discussions and content around measurement. Kenneth, what about you?
I'm more for the lunch and buffet.
Okay, Damon, you've spoken about lunch and buffet. What about you, Kenneth?
So I'm definitely looking forward to and every other marketer and I mean, the networking opportunities have been there. So I'm looking forward to see everyone.
Okay, so you're looking for more business from Singapore. All right, more networking. And what about you, David?
Yeah, for me, it's always about the people. It's the new folks who've never come to AdTech before, who are out there exploring and learning, and then a chance to see, old colleagues and old friends and people you've worked with for years and years, and mix it all up. It's a fantastic meeting point of people from all different edges of not only the ASEAN region, but also different parts of the business.
Right. And Wendy, any last comments in terms of, about AdTech next week, and anything special that we should look out for? Wendy, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I have to unmute now. Sorry, I didn't notice I was muted. I didn't. Yeah. Basically, no, the program is all set. It's looking good. The speaker lineup is really awesome. As we've seen today, we've learned a lot from. And this is going to be on a panel session, a keynote panel session for a closing day. So definitely a great way to close the event is to just jump on different regions and to see what's going on in different regions and the trends. So I think it's something that I personally am looking forward to as someone who's really passionate about digital as well. So yeah, looking forward to see all of you as well.
Great, and I'm looking forward to learning more specific case studies from the different markets. Thanks, Wendy, for organizing and hosting this. A pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Signing off from Singapore. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you. Thanks, everyone else, for joining us. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care. Bye.